That's who I am. I'm the school psychologist, but I represent a whole group of people that are with us in spirit tonight, the school counselors and the social worker and our student success coach and all the administrators. We're all here to support your families and your students. So our objectives today is just to kind of talk about typical versus atypical development in youth, look at warning signs for mental health concerns, talk a little bit about trauma and mental health, interventions and strategies to assist families and students, and also how to assist yourself. And finally, I'll have some resources that I want to share with you, and I also have some time for questions. So there's 4 different types of developments that we are going to talk about, or not really talk about, that there are in this presentation. We're going to focus mainly on social emotional development. It involves emotional regulation, which is often noticed when there are concerns in development. A child's capacity to emotionally self-regulate can affect their family and peer relationships, academic performance, long-term goal setting, long-term mental health. And research has indicated that children who have learned to regulate their emotions can also better handle and bounce back from trauma or adversity, and have higher distress tolerance and are more resilient. So that's kind of where we're going to focus in on, knowing that students are at different levels, developmental levels, in elementary school versus middle school versus high school, and all of those things, cognitively, physical, and language. We kind of all know those developmental milestones for our kids when it comes to those cognitive, physical, and language development. So we're going to focus more on that social emotional. And I have transitions in here, and I don't know how to take them out, so it just sometimes jumps ahead. So sorry about that. So typical social emotional development, we have some elementary through high school, focusing in mainly on the middle box and the inbox, because those are where our kids' ages are, 11 to 18. Remembering that kids develop social and emotional skills differently. If kids don't meet every milestone for their age right away, that's okay. Like, just think about when your child was a baby, sometimes they would walk before they could do this, or talk before they could do that. That's normal, and we get skills at different times. And so this isn't every single type of social emotional development skill out there, but these are some of the ones that we see. So you might notice with your 11 to 15-year-olds that they're beginning to think more logically. Sometimes, maybe not always, but sometimes we're seeing that logic a little bit more. They can be introspective and a little bit moody, and starting to want privacy more. I don't know if you guys are seeing the back of a door a lot at your house, but that is all typical development of that, needing that privacy. They start to value their friends' opinions over their parents', which can be difficult. They are starting to test out new ideas, different styles. We see that at Robinson all the time. Kids come into high school and they have a new style, and then the style changes. They're just trying to fit in and trying to find what works for them. As they get a little older, we start to see so much maturity. Like from 9th and 10th to 11th and 12th, it's amazing how much our students grow. We start to see a lot more independence. They're driving, they're working, they're getting out. They're discovering that they have strengths and weaknesses. They're discovering that their parents have strengths and weaknesses, and oftentimes telling their parents about it. Seeing a lot of pride and success, sometimes influenced easily by peers. And of course, a lot of times looking at starting relationships, getting into relationships, sexual relationships. So these are the kinds of things that is typical for our high schoolers. Atypical. So I was looking at the younger children, 11 and under. It's actually not atypical for us to see students that have frequent stomach aches and headaches. We see a lot of times students, when they start to want to avoid school, they have health problems. And even though these health problems might be related to mental health issues, they're still real. A headache is still a headache, and a stomach ache is still a stomach ache, you know. Real problems are experiencing, it just might not be to a medical condition. Repeat or actions or increased fear, Inconsistency in sleep patterns, which of course it can be true in atypical teenagers. And then sometimes with the younger kids, you might see constant motion and cannot sit still. You might see that in some of your older teens as well. Some atypical development with our older children, elevated energy and activity and requiring much less sleep than usual. So I think to keep in mind for atypical development is it's not unusual for a student to go to a sleepover and stay up all night, right? That's typical. But if a student all of a sudden stops needing sleep and is up all the time or sleeping all the time, like that's unusual. So that's atypical, and maybe we might need to get some help. Anytime you see anything like hallucinations or delusions, that would be atypical behavior, and we would encourage you to reach out and get help pretty quickly for somebody that might be experiencing any kind of psychosis, because that could indicate there could be a medical problem or a serious mental health issue that needs more immediate concern. Another area that we sometimes see at Robinson are students that engage in self-harm behaviors. That's things like maybe cutting or burning their skin. A lot of times parents don't realize this, but this is actually a way that students cope. So it's not the healthiest coping skill, but it's a coping skill. Just like drinking alcohol or doing drugs or smoking cigarettes is not a healthy coping skill. Cutting could be a coping skill as well. So that is one that we try to help the student figure out the function of why they might be self-harming. And then we try to help them get some help to feel better and to a place where they can use some healthy coping skills. So stress and mental health. So stress is not all bad, right? We all experience stress. Right now, we might all be experiencing stress a little bit more, especially when Mr. Pettit has to do certain things during the day that takes him 6 hours to notify parents and students. It can get stressful, right? Like it's a new kind of stress that we haven't had all the time. So COVID is bringing a new layer of stress into our life. So just regular everyday stress is not a bad thing, right? We need stress to stay motivated. We need a little bit of stress to get us motivated to study for a test. We need a little bit of stress to get us motivated to do a project. That's normal. Like that's not a bad thing. So if we take out every opportunity for our child not to feel stressed, then they don't learn that important skill as an adult, which we all have to learn how to manage stress. Of course, when the stress becomes overwhelming and it turns into fear, anxiety, tension, like just overwhelmingly, that's when we need to step in and help provide an outlet for our student. One of the best things that we can do for our students is be good role models ourselves with stress. This is a hard one, you know, so you have to take care of yourself. You have to, if you notice you're feeling a ton of stress about academics or a ton of stress about COVID, perhaps it's your student is feeling that same kind of stress and anxiety. So sometimes you have to figure out ways, like maybe if you need help to deal with it, to reach out and get counseling. If you need to engage in better coping skills, find those coping skills. If you need to reach out and get connected to friends that maybe you've lost contact with, because that's super important to have that personal connections. Those are all good things that you can be role modeling to your teenager. Because if they see us doing it, they might be more likely to do it. Okay, it switched and I needed it to. All right, so why is it important to know what these terms mean? It just kind of helps us to know if we need to seek help or not for an individual that might be experiencing any kind of distress. So the definition of mental health is the psychological and emotional well-being, just all of it. It's not good or bad, it's just your mental health, just like your physical health, right? It just describes your health. Mental distress is when we experience something in our world that's like anxiety. We all experience mental distress. I didn't have the Zoom link for a little bit, so I had a little mental distress, but I problem solved and figured it out, and here we are. It's important to note that Most people get through their day and they keep on going. Mental health problems is different from a disorder. Mental health problems may occur when a person is faced with a larger stressor, like perhaps a death or an illness or a loss of job. And it's not a mental illness, but it's experiencing grief or loss associated with a major life situation. And perhaps a person that has a mental health problem might need some extra support, and that might be help them just to get back to their everyday. And sometimes it might be more, and it might turn into a mental disorder or mental illness. And so a mental disorder or mental illness is when there are psychological or emotional factors that are going on that are impacting your life, your ability to function in school, your ability to function in your family, your relationships, and you've been diagnosed from a certified medical doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist. So that's the difference with our labels there. Just some statistics for you guys. 1 in 5, well, so this is 1 in 5 adults experience some form of mental illness in a given year, and 1 in 10 children. There's other statistics that say 1 in 5 students experience a mental health illness in a year. So if it was 1 in 5, I mean, if you think about your child's in a class of 25 students, that could be 5 students. So it is not a rare situation. It is pretty common, in fact. This next one is kind of shocking. 11% of children under 5 years old suffer from anxiety disorder. So we definitely, it's something, if we're noticing those warning signs at a young age, an early intervention is definitely the way to go. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is probably something you guys have all heard about. It's the most common childhood disorder, and we do see a lot of students with ADHD, a lot of adults with ADHD as well. Depression is one of the leading causes in the world among illnesses and disabilities among adolescents. This next one's really scary. Death by suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people, 15 to 34. In fact, among students in grades 9 to 12 in the United States in 2017, they did this huge study, and 7% of the youth reported that they had made at least one suicide attempt in the past 12 months. So that's why we have to have the conversation. That's why we need to talk about it. We need to make sure that our youth are safe. LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than straight youth. There's a whole lot of research out there on how to support our youth that are LGBTQ, and because they are impacted a lot by different issues, mental health, substance abuse, homelessness. So it's just an area that we need to be mindful of. Ready for that? And then 1 in 4 high school students used e-cigarettes in the last 30 days. 1 in 5 high school seniors have reported that they have misused drugs, prescription drugs. So just to keep that in there and keep that, vaping is pretty common, and many parents are not aware that their child are vaping. Mr. Pettit has to make phone calls pretty regularly and let them know about this, and parents are shocked. And again, it's a coping skill. Like a lot of times kids, you know, they used to smoke cigarettes to cope, and now they're vaping to cope, and people tell them there's substances that will make them feel calm and less anxious. So we like just to help them get connected to resources and coping skills that are healthy for their bodies. Here are some disorders that are impacting our youth: attention deficit disorder, anxiety, bipolar, depression, eating disorders, psychosis, substance use disorders. We have students that experience all of those on campus, some more than others, like ADHD, anxiety, and depression. We definitely see students that are diagnosed with those. Bipolar and psychosis, that's a little bit more less common, but students do still experience some symptoms of that. Substance use disorders, sometimes people are not aware that substance use disorders is actually a mental health diagnosis. It seems like it's such an intentional act, but in fact, it is a diagnosis. And it really can become life-threatening and life-altering. So it's an area that there is tons and tons of, we have so many resources available for families if they feel like they might have a child that has a substance use disorder. So we would just ask you guys to reach out to us and let us know, and we can hook you up with resources for those. Well, for any of these, but we have resources. So next is signs and symptoms of adolescents and teens who may be at risk for developing a disorder. Remember, just because a student has an at-risk factor, a sign and symptom, doesn't mean they will develop a mental health disorder. And also, just because a student has this doesn't necessarily mean they have a mental health disorder. And the characteristics listed here must be interfering or hindering their ability to make progress in their daily functioning. So sometimes kids can do things and it's not impacting their life as much as you would think, but for the most part, if it is, that's when we want to get help. So loss of interest in things they used to enjoy. So if you have a kid that's always done gymnastics, but he's decided they're done with gymnastics and they want to like maybe try lacrosse now, that's a change, right? But now if you have a kid that was super involved in gymnastics and wants to do absolutely nothing and doesn't want to get involved with any extracurricular activities, maybe that's an area that we need to look into, knowing that things are a little off right now with COVID and quarantining. Spending more time alone and avoiding social activities, not just with family, but with friends too. So when they just start to isolate and not want to leave their room at all, not even for friends or anything, that might be a time that you might want to get some extra help. Hallucinations and delusions, always a time where you should get immediate help. Talk to your child's physician or call student services. We can help you get some help there. Engaging in the self-harming behaviors, we would say you should get help immediately for those helps. If you have a child that's smoking, drinking, or using drugs, that they might be at risk for a mental health disorder. Having thoughts of suicide is one that is pretty common with students, and a lot of times parents are worried to ask their child if they're having thoughts of suicide, and research shows actually if you're concerned that your child is having a thought of suicide, it is okay, and actually research would say ask them, because if you ask them, you're not putting that thought in their head, you're actually maybe giving them an outlet to talk about it and maybe feel some relief, like, oh, they get me, they understand me, I'm not crazy or whatever. And then for eating disorders, excessive weight or diet or exercising excessively, losing weight or gaining weight excessively can be a sign of an eating disorder. Childhood trauma is a big risk factor for every single mental health diagnosis out there. So we're going to talk about the definition of trauma, how it impacts children, the warning signs to look for, different types of trauma, and also how parents can help their children cope with trauma. So our working definition of trauma is in a response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope, causes feelings of helplessness, diminishes their sense of self, and their ability to feel the full range of emotions and experiences. So a trauma can be scary, it can be, and it can be dangerous, and it could actually happen to you, or it could be something that you know happened to somebody, or it could be something you saw on the news over and over and over again. People experience trauma in all different ways. If a person experiences some kind of physical abuse, that could lead to depression, anxiety, or even post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's kind of like an example of how a trauma can be linked to mental health diagnosis. So here are different types of traumatic events, life-threatening and terminal illnesses, not just of the student, but of a student's loved one, infectious diseases like corona, acts of violence. So you might think about the school shootings, or even some of the racial injustice we've seen around the country, terrorist attacks, anything like that. natural disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, those can actually be when those situations happens. Trauma can definitely be a big factor, and trauma teams actually go out to the schools and help students that have experienced that. I have to learn how to take this transition off. Another one that parents don't think about are car crashes and other accidents. So sometimes a student is in a car accident and then has a complete change of behavior, and no one really links it to the car accident. But car accidents can cause trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, even minor ones. And even like a student could be in a car accident with 4 other students and only one person suffers trauma. So everybody is different. Some kids are more resilient than others. So just being mindful that if your child is exposed to a traumatic event or witnessed a traumatic event, these are things that they might need further follow-up on. So signs and symptoms are things that you might want to be aware of, especially if you're worried about your child with COVID and being exposed to this pandemic and having to be in the house all the time, or other types of trauma. Things to be on the lookout for would be worrying a lot or feeling very anxious, talking about being sad a lot, crying a lot for no reason, and at random times, having difficulty sleeping, complaining about nightmares, having trouble thinking clearly, like just can't focus, can't used to be able to do well on tests, and now they can't even figure out how to study. Having flashbacks about the traumatic experience, irritability, anger, isolating. Back to that isolation, that's always a warning sign that we should be checking in. Avoiding places that bring back disturbing memories or responses. Sometimes we have students that are driving in a car, and they are the ones that in the car accident, and now they don't want to drive anymore, so they want to avoid that. And then that just feeling of hopelessness. So those are all things, like if a student says, I just don't think, what's the point? I don't have a future. Those are all signs that they might be impacted by trauma. So what can you do? How, as a parent, can you help? The first thing that we want to show you is this green box right here. Take care of yourself first. So back to the airplane example, if you're on an airplane and the pilot, or in the beginning they say, in the whatever case of an emergency and the air drops back, always put the oxygen on yourself first before your passengers you're traveling with. If you don't take care of yourself in a trauma, you cannot take care of others. So if you are feeling trauma from a car accident or corona, taking care and getting the help you need will really go a long way in your ability to care for your loved one. Also, you're being a good role model for your student. Always stay calm. I mentioned irritability, isolation, anger, using drugs. Like, you could get it could be stressful in your house. So the hardest thing you'll probably have to do is just stay calm. When you're having a child that's experiencing trauma, you go low, get quiet, try not to yell, because yelling might further escalate. Be patient. It sometimes takes a while to get through trauma. So know that this might be the long haul, and maybe you might need to get some support. Support groups are a great place to get support for people that are going through similar things. Try not to take your child's behavior personally. It can be real easy when they say, I hate you, I wish you weren't my mom, to take it personally. No, that's the trauma speaking, and they don't mean it. Listen to your child, acknowledge your child. If they say, I'm just so scared there's going to be a school shooting, don't say, oh, that would never happen, you don't have to worry about that. Say, yeah, that would be really scary. Do you want me to help you talk to someone about that? Might be a good way to help your child get through it. And just like, even if they were talking about a school, being worried about going to school about a school shooting, like, you could talk about all the amazing things that Robinson High School does to keep a child safe. And we do a ton of things to keep your child safe. So, and if you have more questions about that, you can always reach out to any of us and ask what we're doing to keep your children safe, so you can relay that message to your child. And always, always, always ask for help. pay attention to those warning signs of your child. Okay, so just so you guys know, I got this presentation from our mental health office through the district, and they run our grant that is for the mental health plan with Senate Bill 726 and 730. So this is the presentation, or this is the came out of the Parkland shooting. So all of the money that goes to help increase security. We have a new amazing, I think it's really cool system to every school campus. Every school district has one, has an alert system. If there was somebody on campus, we could immediately lock down the school immediately just from a click. So it paid for that. It's increased mental health funds. It's increased mental health services. So there are all types of good things that have come out of that bill. So here are some of the things that we offer. We have an Act Now presentation. We normally historically did this live and in person, and now we just recorded our Act Now presentation. It's a presentation for students. It helps them learn about warning signs for mental health disorders and suicide, and then it also introduces them to their mental health team and how to get help for their friends or themselves. So we will be showing that to our students soon in the near future. Cognito is a super interesting training that teaches teachers how to get through practical experiences with youth that are experiencing mental health issues, and it like you go through scenarios, and it's very fun. Like the kids get snarky back at you, and so, but it gives teachers a way to practice those skills. And then we also have youth mental health first aid. All employees are going to be trained in youth mental health first aid, and it's a 6-hour training. Yeah, we're getting excited. A 6-hour training it's really, really, really good. And I got permission for parents to get trained in it. So if I can get 20 parents to sign up, you guys can have that training for free via Zoom. So, and I can talk to you guys more about that. If you have questions, I'm actually a trainer. So it'd be more of me, but less talking, more discussing. So, and we also have our Sandy Hook Promise, just start with hello. So everything's a little different because of COVID right now, but that's normally they have conferences and kids get together and they meet up, and then they come back and bring up ways that kids can sit on the same bench and you know, just start with hello. How do you access mental health services? Super easy. Anybody can access us. Parents, students, administrators, community members, anyway, you can call us, you can call Mr. Pettit, you can call myself. We have links all over Canvas on how to access us. Students can walk in, they can send us Canvas messages. We all are texting now, and we help with everything. We help with, and by we, I mean myself, the school counselors, the social workers, the student success coach, the nurse. We help with crises. We help with hooking you up with counselors. We help with finding resources for your family, all types of resources. So anything you need, we're here for you. And then if we cannot provide counseling for you at school, then we actually help you find it in the community. And if there are barriers, we have from that grant money, we have ways to get community-based resources through that grant for families that can't afford resources. And here's all our community partners. And I'm gonna send you guys, or I'll send this, we'll get this presentation to you so you have all of the community partners. So this is who, if we refer to, and this is who we sometimes provide counseling for students that can't afford it through our grant money. I don't know who these additional providers are. I mean, I know who Rogers Behavioral Health is. I'm not sure who Heads is, and I don't even know what this little symbol is down here, but so we're getting on touch with them. We actually have DACO at our school that does preventative counseling, and then all of these other entities actually we have interactions with regularly. So tips for home for parents. If you can't figure out what's causing the trigger with the trauma, keep some data. Call me, I can help you figure out how to keep data. talk to your child, listen to them, hear what they're saying, validate their feelings. Saying, ugh, that's terrible goes a long way. Like, rather than, you don't need to worry about that. Just saying, ugh, I'm sorry you feel like that. That validation really goes a long way. Think about significant environmental or family changes. If there's a lot of violence or drug use or whatever going on around your home, it might be something worth looking at if you can change things. Pay attention. Social media is huge. I can't tell you how often Mr. Pettit, myself, and the rest of our team have to deal with social media. And a lot of times parents don't know what's going on with the social media. So talk to your kids about social media. Talk to them about how whatever they say is there forever. Talk to them about how it's a record, about how they can go into a database if they report inappropriate things. There's just so many things that can happen bad from social media, but so many good things too. So like, let's not throw it all out. Just talk to them about safety and how to safely use social media. If you have questions or concerns, you can always talk to your child's pediatrician, and then try to get your child off of their device, out of their rooms, and do fun things. You know, get them on a walk, get them under some sunshine. Maybe don't take them to the movies because we're not there yet. Encourage them to get outside and do safe things though, because they're gonna say no, but they gotta get out of their house, right? They have to get out of their house. And at school, if you have concerns at school, I think I've said it a lot of times, we're here for you. If you need us, call us. We will always make time to see you, talk with you. You can email us, you can get us anyway. You can always talk to your child's teacher. They know what's going on and they know how to reach us. You can ask us for mental health resources, and we have tons at our fingertips. We actually, Hillsborough County has a parent services department, and they provide advocates for parents and also parent training. So if that's something you're interested in, we can hook you up with that as well. Know that you are not alone. We have so many resources for you. 211 is our biggest. It's a crisis hotline and also a resource. So if you need resources, you call 211, you tell them your what you're looking for, where you live, and all that, and they find resources for you. So here, these are all resources. I want to point you out to the EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. If you work for a large corporation or even sometimes a small corporation, they offer free counseling sometimes. So I personally get 5 free counseling sessions for myself, 5 free counseling sessions for my children and for my husband. So, you know, if you need help accessing that, you can ask your employer if you have that. So I did have some questions that were pre-read to me. So I'm going to stop this share. And one question was how to help my child cope with stress related to school and her grades. So like I said, it's important to have some stress, but too much is too much. So our team, we reviewed the questions. We said having realistic expectations about homework, having some schedules in place, having your homework place. Sometimes you have to go back to the elementary schools where there was a set place for homework, and they have checklists and they get things done. Sometimes it's just things that back to the basics of helping them deal with that stress, and sometimes they just avoid it and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So sometimes if you can just get them to write it down and check it off, it really is very helpful. Another question that came up was best strategies to keep your student motivated academically when they're struggling emotionally. So we always say deal with the emotion first, get the help there, because it's really, 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 really hard to focus if you're experiencing extreme depression, anxiety, ADHD. It's hard. So talk to us, and then we'll help you get those strategies in place, because mental health issues can cause problems with motivation, concentration, sleep, all things you need to be a good student. And then the last question was how to help a student who lost all motivation and sense of future. So sense of future would be concerning. So if they feel like there's no point and they don't, what's the point, no future, I would get help. And for them mentally to make sure that they aren't suicidal and aren't feeling like life is hopeless. But Mr. Driscoll, he's our school counselor. He's in charge of our e-learners, and he wants you all to know that if you need him, he is available for e-learning help, and all our counselors are available, but he said no one really reaches out to him for mental health help. So if you need it, he is there for you, but he had a couple good websites that I will include on the PowerPoint. He said brightfutures.org and My Career Shines are good websites. So looking at a student, if a student is not feeling any motivation whatsoever, why are they not motivated? If it's a mental health issue, we address the mental health issue. Maybe their goals are different now than they were, and they're in classes that don't really line up with their goals. So maybe sit down and have them figure out what their personal goals are and their interests, and maybe try to align their classes with their interests now. Not through schedule changes, but next year, I'm gonna look at new schedules. And then try to figure out where they wanna be. Like, so if they wanna go to colleges, the brightfutures.org, he said, is an amazing college website that tells you about all these different colleges and the different programs and really allows you to go in depth for them. But maybe they're not interested in a college and they they wanna go to a technical center or go right into a career. He said, My Career Shines offers career inventories and interests and helps them maybe kind of get a little bit more direction in their life. So basically having your child figure out what motivates them and why they want to be where they want to be is helping them find the motivation. We want them to be more motivated than we are, right? We want them to care more about their grades than they do. So we have to figure out a place to get them there. Oh, I did a lot of talking. So is there any questions that you want to type me directly, because so that way we don't, if you had a personal question about your child, you can type those to me. And I will send you the resources. I'm going to email them to you, Ms. Welchner Granger. More about the 6-hour training? Okay, so it's called Youth Mental Health First Aid, and the first 2 hours is computerized. You do on your own time. You're introduced to some students that are experiencing mental health issues that then develop into disorders. It goes in depth on signs and symptoms of youth mental health and teaches you how to ask the questions that are important if a child is feeling suicidal. And it's geared towards, and then the 4 hours we do on Zoom because of COVID, otherwise we do it live, is going through scenarios and applying real life practice. And it's a really great interactive, even on Zoom, a great interactive training where you learn in different roles, like not just teachers, but as a parent, as a coach, as a youth leader, as a person on the bus, right? And you get to like really practice these skills and practice. It kind of changes your whole view on things. Like when you're out in public, you kind of want to like, you know, a CPR responder, then it's like a first aid aider, and you kind of want to help out all the time. Even me, I'm a trained professional. I love it. So it's 6 hours. The department said they would pay for you guys to be trained, and they pay for all the materials if I could get 20 people. And it's interactive, lots of discussion, lots of participation. Any other questions? All right. I'm sorry if I talked super fast. Peer support. So that was a question that Amy and I were speaking about before, like how to get peer support. It's so hard right now, especially for e-learners. And it's something I was going to take back to my team, how we provide the peer support. I'm not sure, like what I think we're going to have to brainstorm and figure out some different ways that kids can connect with each other, because we really feel like kids are not, especially e-learners, are not having that opportunity to connect. So especially freshmen, like how they don't know anybody, right? And during class, it's like this, and no one can chat, and you know, you can't break into groups and stuff, so it's just hard. Any other questions? You're welcome, Mrs. Fudge. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Walton. All right. Well, I really enjoyed presenting to you. If you have any questions, I'm going to put, do we have a way to email them the PowerPoint, Amy?
Yes, I have everybody's emails that registered. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
Hi. Hey, Anna Marie. Yes. Hello, can you hear me? I'm driving, but I've been trying to figure out how to get this question. Have you all seen an increase or heard anything about an increase in drug use among these kids? Because it seems like it's kind of going on.
I have not. I don't know, Mr. Pettit. I don't know. I haven't heard anything more than usual.
I mean, as far as what we're seeing come through our offices, I do pull the data frequently as far as what referrals we get in and things that we have encountered. Mm-hmm. This year, we haven't had that. Like I said, I mean, it's doesn't mean that there's not stuff going on outside of school. I've heard some stuff. But as far as like an increase, I can't say that with any certainty. I do know that, with student services and Ms. Guida, anytime something comes across our desk, the few issues that we have had have been out of school things where a friend maybe comes to us confidentially and says, hey, look, I've got a friend who's going through some stuff and they're getting into some things that they probably shouldn't be. We then try to set them up with the proper supports.
Okay. So is there like I don't know. I mean, is there like a parent protocol? Like, what do you want parents to do? We've heard some stuff.
As far as like if you know something or have someone that needs assistance?
Right. Like just sort of rumors.
Let us know. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
personally, call him on the phone or send him a message.
Yeah. The more information we have, I mean, because there are, 1,400 plus, including our e-learners, of course, including both brick and mortar and e-learning, and there are, 6 administrators. So, I mean, we're, everywhere we can be, but, we can't be, in the bathroom everywhere at one time, right? So, it's one thing that we definitely do stress to our students is that, if you see something, say something, please, and.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
We don't.
And they do.
Yeah,
they
really,
do a great
really
job. do. Like if there is
Okay.
ever like a text that goes on that like implies any kind of, I mean, there's like 8 phones in the office before like you can, as soon as it's there, like our students they always come to the office with everything.
That says a lot about you guys, that how much they trust you, obviously. If you have that many students that are willing to come in and talk to you, that's
and we drill that message all the time. You see something, say something.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. And I'll send this out to everyone. And if you have follow-up questions, you can reach out directly.
Yeah, my PowerPoint, it's in the PowerPoint, my email address, and it's also on the website.
It's on the website, yeah. So definitely, and hopefully you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. Please share the information with a friend. I always tell everybody, if you learned something today, share it with someone else, because our kids really need the support. And if you are interested in doing the mental health first aid, just let us know, because I'm going to send out a sign up and see if we can get 20 parents to commit, because I think it would be a really awesome thing for our kids to have more